Hey, what's up, cats and kittens, and shout out to all my cerebralites. It is me, the Cerebral Diva, and I'm back with another episode of You Say What. Now, in today's episode of You Say What, I'm going to be talking about a subject that is sort of very poignant to me in this day and time, and that is dating someone that you have absolutely no business dating. Not listening to your intuitions and allowing emotions to drive you off of a cliff. Now, first of all, before I get into that, if you guys hear noise in the background, my condo overlooks the pool in my complex, so you may hear water splashing or kids playing. So I do apologize in advance if you happen to hear that. With that being said, so recently, I'm single, but I'm actively dating. And I met a guy recently, right? Really, really nice guy. Super, super intelligent, tall, dark, handsome. All the things that I look for. He's a doctor. He's very successful in his career. Pretty much everything. Like, if I had a checklist and I went down the checklist, pretty much everything on the checklist would be checked off. There were some other things, like I felt like he was too thin. I do like a guy with a little bit more meat on his bones. I don't mean chubby, but I like a guy who's beefy, sort of husky. I just like a guy who has a little bit more substance to him, and this guy was pretty thin. In addition to that, he smoked weed, but because he had so many other things going on for him, even though I don't smoke weed and my preference is to date men who do not smoke weed, I've learned in 2018 to not date a man who smokes weed, or to not date a woman if that's your thing. It's very few and far between. So we were dating and things were pretty interesting. Um, and he would text me and call me periodically. And I'm one of those people, right, where I match the energy of the person that I'm interested in. So if a guy texts me, I'll text him back. Now, some of you may think that what I'm about to say is a little bit petty, but I'm not being petty. What I'm trying to do, like, the one thing I've learned throughout my history of dating is that the only actions you can ultimately control are your own. So if you find yourself involved with someone who's not giving you what you want, there's nothing that you can do, nothing that you can say that's going to, sort of fast forward that person to be where you need them to be at that particular time. The only thing that you can do is scale back or push forward. Like, you can control yourself, but typically no one else can control you. So this particular guy, I mentioned that he was a doctor, and because he's a doctor, he's usually pretty busy. And I get that. I'd rather have a man who is busy than a man who had time to sit underneath me not doing anything all day. But he's one of these people, right, who would text you at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And you can text him back at 10:01, and you wouldn't get a response back from him until the following day. And I get it, you're busy, but no one's that busy. So I'm not gonna. So if that's the way that you communicate, even though I'm making a mental note, okay. So if I respond to him, I can pretty much count on him not getting back to me until maybe a day later. So for me, a person not responding to me within a day says that I'm not that important to you, and that's an issue for me. So at that point, when he responds to me, if I see his message, I just don't respond until I feel like responding. And sometimes it may be a day later, sometimes it may be 2 days later. Now, some people, like I said earlier, might say, well, you're playing games. I'm not playing games. I'm matching the energy that he's giving to me. And let me tell you why this is important. This is important because as women, and some guys too, I'm going to try not to make things so gender oriented, male versus female, etc. Because I think that people are messed up in general, whether they're male, female, transgender, gay, straight, bi, whatever you are. There's just some messed up people in this world. And so I'm going to try to deviate from sort of making it a male versus female thing. Um, so you have to match the energy, because if you wind up giving more to a person than they're reciprocating, then you're going to wind up feeling slighted. You're going to wind up feeling cheated. And that's when you start keying cars and breaking out windows and slicing tires and doing all the crazy, cutting clothes, bleaching clothes, doing all those crazy erratic things that we can do as a result of emotions. So That's why I think it's important to match the energy. So if you start to match the energy of the person that you're dating, then whether it be consciously or subconsciously, you will have a little bit more control over your emotions because you're making a conscious choice to monitor those emotions and make sure that you're not over investing in something that's not worth making the investment in. Um, so anyhow, I recognized that he wasn't texting me, you know, as quick as I would like. So I sort of scaled back my responses to match the timetable in which he responded. And then he started texting me at the wee hours of the morning, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Well, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. What the hell do you think I'm doing? So, but I'm not. I'm going to try to not make a big deal of that. But even though I think it's tacky to text a woman at 2 a.m. in the morning if you're not in a relationship, because that definitely for me has some connotations. And you know what? That's a really good point. Comment below if you think that someone that you're just getting to know texting you at 2 a.m. And you know, some people may say, well, he's a doctor. That was the only time he had free, et cetera, et cetera. Well, he's a doctorate. He's not a doctor. He's actually a professor, so his schedule isn't the same as a doctor. So let me make that clarification. So it's not like he's dealing with patients and having surgery all night. You know, he's teaching class and preparing lesson plans, what have you. Um, so there is clearly time for a person to take 30 seconds to say, "Hey, busy day. Just wanted to let you know I'm thinking about you. I'll get back to you when I have a little bit more free time." Right? To me, that's a very and that's the danger of text messaging. I think is text messaging for me is the downfall of humanity because people don't even end text messages anymore. Like they don't end conversations. People just put the phone down and stop responding. And I find that I do that as well now. Like if I'm for me, about 5 text messages is my capacity. Once we start exceeding 5 text messages, 10 text messages, it's time for you to make a phone call because I'm not going to keep on swiping or texting you back and forth until I have carpal tunnel. It drives me crazy. Pick up the phone, let's have a conversation, and be done with it. So anyhow, he wasn't responding, so I stopped responding. Then he started texting me at the wee hours of the morning. But I found my brain telling me, you know, hey, this is a good guy, you know, he's a doctor, he has this going on. And I started making excuses for his behavior, you know, saying, well, maybe he's just really busy, you know, give him an opportunity to call you, you know, maybe you're rushing, you know, into something too soon. And, you know, like I started telling myself basically that everything that I was doing wrong and making excuses for everything that he was doing wrong. And what I realized in that moment is that this was a pattern for me. This is something that I'd done before. I dated men who I knew I had absolutely no business with. You know, whether it be because they were not as educated as I would like, whether it be because they had issues with finding employment because their child support was in arrears. You know, they had felony convictions, so that made it difficult for them to find a job. I dated a guy one time who would not. People, please do not judge me. um, excuse me. I dated a guy one time who would only he would only apply for jobs that didn't test for drugs because he didn't want to stop smoking weed, and he thought that that was okay. He didn't understand that, you know, maybe stopping from smoking weed would be the logical thing to do. He thought that looking for jobs, circumnavigating these jobs that were drug testing was the logical thing to do. But my point being is that I've dated me, and when I'm dating these guys who are not as educated, not as cultured, just not a lot of what I look for, I find that I make excuses because being intelligent, being successful, having all of the things that I want, people will very often make it seem like I'm being bougie for wanting to have what I offer mirrored in my partner. Now you'll talk to men, right, who talk about women being gold diggers, and very often I'll hear men say, well, you know, these women want a man with no car, but what do I want with a woman who doesn't have a car? But if I, as a successful woman of color, choose to date men who are successful and who are, you know, goal oriented and driven and really trying to make things happen in their lives, for some reason I'm vilified for having standards, for lack of a better term. So when this guy texted me at 2 a.m. and woke me up out of my sleep, it said to me, and he didn't give a damn about what I had to do because he impeded my sleep process, for one. Two, whenever a man texts me at 2 a.m., like I said before, I feel like he has a very specific agenda, and we're all grown folk here, so I don't need to necessarily go into detail about what that agenda could have potentially been. And that's suppositions on my part. That's me speculating as to what his intentions were. But when you text me WID, not even a full text message, 3 letters, WID, what you doing, is essentially what that acronym amounts to. At 2 a.m. in the morning, yeah, it's going to send off some red flags for me. So I sat there laying in my bed after I had been woken. I responded back to him and said, I'm lying down, right? And he texted me at about 2 a.m. I responded back to him at about 2:11. And then when I responded to him at 2:11, he didn't say a word back to me. Not a single word. Okay, so then I waited the following day until about 8 p.m. the following day to see if he was going to have enough courtesy to say anything. So finally, around 9 o'clock the following day, almost 24 hours, I texted him and I said, hey, is this indicative of what I can expect from you in terms of communication moving forward? And then he texted me back and he said, oh, I'm sorry, beautiful. I was just really busy. No, he said, I had an emergency. Okay. I'm sure you're side-eyeing just like I was side-eyeing. Negro, there was no emergency. There was no emergency. You probably were drunk texted multiple women, and then one of them bit. And so because that person bit, you didn't feel inclined to respond to my text message, which is fine. We're not in a relationship, so I don't have an issue with you doing that. Excuse me, I don't have an issue with you seeing other women, but don't include me in that sort of pool of basic bitchs that you date. Like, don't, I'm not that girl. So when he texted me, when I texted him back the following day and he texted me back and said he apologized, I let it ride. Once again, I'm trying to make excuses. Well, maybe this, maybe that. You don't really know what his story is. There could have been an emergency. Just things that, for me, I know better than to buy into. That it's just completely illogical. And the fact that he said I had an emergency as opposed to being specific, like, oh, my mom got sick, or, my brother was in a car accident, something more than I had an emergency. That just sounded like a lie to me because it was a lie. So at that point, my red flags really started going up. So I sat there the following day making excuses and trying to find reasons for me to not walk away. And what I realized in that moment is that this is an opportunity for me to make a logical decision and not an emotional decision. And I think very often we as people, I'm not going to say women, even though that's my natural inclination, I think that very often you see something and you want it and you make excuses for it. You see bad behavior and you mitigate it because you want that prize versus to take a real authentic look. Because what this man was telling me was basically that what you want, I'm not going to offer. Unless you can recalibrate and become conditioned to the way I'm going to treat you, then you're not going to be happy here. And so in that instance, I decided for myself, he's not worth it, and I have to really set a precedent for myself. I don't give a damn what he thinks or how he feels because none of that is important to me because how I feel and what I think is clearly not important to him. And I'm not going to keep on trying to be more understanding, be more tolerant to behavior that makes me feel devalued for the sake of proving to him that I can ride or die. Why am I riding and trying to prove myself to a person who's not doing the same for me in return? And that's when I think it's really important for us as people. Man, I want to say women so bad. That's when I think it's important. And the reason I'm trying to make this message more universal, because guys go through the same problem. There are some trifling women out there You know, um, women who date women go through the same thing. Men who date men go through the same thing. This is not specific to gender or sexual orientation. Once again, this is one of those things that's just a universal theme. There's just some very poorly cultured, on just some very there's just some jacked up people in this world. You know what I mean? And if you're not careful, you will find yourself holding hands and waking up and making breakfast for one of them. And all of the signals that you needed to see were they were there in advance, and you chose to ignore them. You chose to make excuses because you had a fear of being by yourself, being alone. You wanted the validation of saying, look, I have a boyfriend, hey, I have a girlfriend. And because of that, you wake up one day and you're complaining about laying next to the person who's not giving you what you want when they started off that exact way, and you made excuses for them not giving you what you want. So ultimately, you are complicit in not getting what you want. And so I'm just challenging people in general, myself included, to make better decisions when it comes to the people that you choose in your life. If you're involved with someone who you feel is not giving you what you want, excuse me, I'm not telling you not to date that person. I'm just saying give what you get. If they give a little, you give a little. Don't think that by giving extra that's somehow going to induce them into wanting you around more or wanting to be with you more, because it's going to make you feel cheated if they don't. If they're telling you through their actions and not their words that I only have a little bit to give to you in terms of times, in terms of my responses to you via text or otherwise, because you're not that important to me, you need to hear those messages and receive those messages, and stop thinking that for some reason you have the capacity to change that person and make them love you or want you or value you or appreciate you or see you in the way that you believe that they should see you. Anyhow, you guys, that's enough. I'm going to step off my soapbox right now. I want you guys to comment below and let me know what you think about matching the energy of the person that you're dating. Beyond matching the energy of the person that you're dating, I also want to know what you think about listening to your intuition, versus listening to your emotions. Your emotions, I'm telling you, do not do not listen to those emotions. And I challenge everyone, especially anyone listening to this video, for every emotional decision that you make, try to counterbalance that with a logical decision. Don't date based solely on what your heart feels. Listen to your brain. Sometimes your brain is giving you the information that you need. It is telling you danger, 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 danger. You have to choose to listen to that when it comes to navigating this tumultuous world of dating. With that being said, you guys, I'm going to get out of here. As always, in closing, remember to live better, love harder, and think smarter. Always, and also remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you don't want to subscribe, that's fine too. Doesn't bother me any. Doesn't make me any. Doesn't make a difference to me anyway. Either way, excuse me. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day. It's me, the Cerebral Diva. Bye.